connecting the dots, but Mercury retrograde is very nonlinear. So you're kind of dealing with a time scale that doesn't really seem to go forward. It only really seems to go backward. But I think that by going backward, Mercury is able to kind of sift over past information, something that was forgotten, that needed to ultimately be gone over again to be understood more clearly. And I think the big theme of this Mercury retrograde is it's a little bit of confusion and stress on Mercury with the Neptune opposition, when Mercury will dip back into Virgo. But in the beginning, in the pre-shadow phase, that was when Mercury was opposing Neptune, and that kind of really disorganized and disoriented Mercury. I think that kind of caused a little bit of a bubble to pop, and kind of something like a levee to break almost. In terms of Mercury's organization, and it kind of blew out a levee, and so that there's kind of things that detailed things that were being planned that need to go back over, and need to be but so that's going on. Mercury retrograde, just be prepared. Just remember, this may not be the most easy thing. And Mercury, what does Mercury rule? So Mercury rules connecting, socializing, talking to people, getting things done, like for instance, like fixing things. Mercury is really in charge of that. Mercury can, it's get to kind of like a test tube level of discrimination with how it's dealing with things. So during this time, Mercury is going to need to really be supported. Usually, what I do is I'll do a lot of Mercury boosts to help Mercury. Not only actually, first what I'll do is I'll kind of clarify Mercury, clean up Mercury. Clarify the negative energy or whatever fix kind of the parts that Mercury needs to kind of get updated, I guess. Kind of update the software, I guess. Clean the bugs out, fix things, and then after that, what you do is then you feed Mercury. Then you kind of boost Mercury up, because Mercury, is actually, I think that no, I don't want to say that, because I think that normally for Mercury retrogrades, I think it's more important to just clarify Mercury. I think that by feeding it, you're going to maybe get a little bit more backwards results. It's not to say that Mercury shouldn't be fed, but I think that it's just there's a difference between maybe thinking. I think that certain situations call for different remedies. Not every remediation is going to fit everything, but in general, I think the mode is to kind of clarify and to cleanse, to clean out, to understand. I think that's just the best mode of action, to be honest. Because a lot of the Neptunian struggle is not understanding things very clearly, kind of perceiving something in a vastly different way than what someone else was describing. So, there's this kind of dichotomy of perspective and not really finding the right perspective. There's a million perspectives and kind of clouding them all into one. I think that may be a theme, or at least just kind of maligning the narrative with this kind of Neptunian acidic melting down of boundaries. Especially I think with Mercury trining Jupiter or trining Pluto. I think that that's kind of a recipe for potential problems. With people, just difficulty, because Mercury. A lot of what Mercury does is dealing with people and understanding what you can and can't say to people. Gossiping or not gossiping, understanding, Mercury deals with those things. The kinds of how you treat people in a way. I think of a lot of times I'll think of Buddha, kind of do unto other, this kind of I would say really do unto others as others would do unto you. I think Mercury operates best under those rules. Just because, Mercury can be really critical on, Mercury can tend to be really, really critical. So, a lot of times it's important to remember that, with Mercury, it's not good to gossip. There's some things that we can kind of take care of our own Mercury by, remembering, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't get in this argument. Maybe I shouldn't gossip. Maybe I shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't just float my opinion around just because it's fun. And I think that, Mercury really deals with that, understanding what you can and can't say to someone. What's really, I wouldn't say respectful, but, how you can have a friendship. Because Mercury is friendship. You think about Gemini, the twins that were not twins but born from different fathers. You just think about that, and you kind of think about how a lot of Mercury is, finding the similarity and being able to, see the likeness a lot of times, and being able to relate on things. Being able to, compare and contrast. Understanding, the a little bit of, ideas, floating ideas around, what ideas this person would like, what ideas that person would like, what ideas they wouldn't. That's a lot of what Mercury's sphere is. And, Venus is similar in that, but I think Venus is more like likes and wants. And Venus is more, charismatic. And Venus is more kind of socially charming and, maybe a little bit more of a doormat at times. Not in a bad way. Oops, sorry, bro. Anyway, I forgot you were here. Yeah. So, but also not a doormat just as much. There's kind of two. Venus can, be the doormat, or can be, can kind of be the one that gets their cheek kissed. I can't remember that metaphor. It's like a French metaphor. I always think about that though, because it's like, in love, or it's there's one getting their cheek kissed and one kissing the cheek. And I think that Venus kind of rules that, and being doted on, and also doting on. But that kind of gets into a little bit of, I don't want to split hairs here. But in a lot of ways, Mercury rules connecting the dots and talking to people. And I think a lot of times, I've heard and I've dealt with, when Mercury goes retrograde, there's lots of issues with, problems with lying, problems with telling the truth, not really being very clear about things and having to go back and really understand it because, messed up someone else's, it caused a problem for someone else. And I think it's important to recognize that, what we do has kind of an impact on other people. And so, that kind of Mercury, that relational sphere of Mercury, I think is important to understand, why it's important to not gossip is, because ultimately, it can impact other people. It may just seem like chitter chatter, but, I think that, a lot of times, I'm guilty of doing that too, but I don't think it's good. I think that everyone has like capabilities of, or I guess not capabilities, but there's times where we kind of don't really lean into our doing to others as others would do unto you. We kind of get stuck in this. Well, we kind of make tallies and say, well, they did this to me, so I'm not going to do anything to them. We make kind of rules. It kind of gets, especially with Mars and Gemini right now. It's kind of like rules. There's kind of like this, it's the social games are a little bit unfair. They're not fun. But, I think that when Mercury's not in a good position, Mercury is known to be good with the good planets and bad with the bad planets. So, sometimes on the more, I guess, excessive, Mercury is more critical, prone to, telling things up. I won't do that for you, because, this happened, and, being really critical about that, I think. So this Mercury retrograde is also opposite, Jupiter. I mentioned it was opposite Neptune. And the Neptune part is kind of the deleterious, the deterioration part of the Mercury retrograde. That's not going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit kind of a really big buzzkill probably. But I think that Jupiter opposition is kind of lending towards there's a brighter side to things. There is despite these things being eroded, despite, Mercury kind of creating art in Virgo and kind of creating this, refining their art, you're refining the process, refining their craft, materials, clay. I kind of like to think of Virgo as a little bit of like, it's movable earth. So you're working with clay, you're spinning clay, pottery. And, so there's this, Mercury is, deals with kind of the fallout of, Mercury's work just kind of being eroded by Neptune. But then Jupiter kind of comes along and says, you know what, that's kind of life, and you need to recognize that it's not you that's, because I feel like the Neptune kind of wants to dissolve the ego of Mercury as well. I feel like Neptune is really, Neptune can sometimes really be about the ego as well. It's a weird planet. I feel like Neptune and the Sun are kind of opposites in that way. But yeah, because the Sun is healthy egocentrism, and Neptune is kind of more narcissism, more kind of really shade, really kind of. It can be, it can also be understanding. I don't think that, I think that there is kind of a good case for Neptune being able to do the good things, being able to find social delights and pleasures and being able to offer those more readily and available. But, there are some bad qualities to Neptune, and, it's not to say that there's not good qualities, but I think that, when there's certain planetary combinations, you're going to get maybe the worst spectrum of Neptune, especially with Mercury and Neptune, as well as the Sun and Neptune. But yeah, so just because they're opposites, they're really big opposites, and they're really polarizing in their significations. And Neptune is more. Yeah, Neptune and the Sun can be good. However, Neptune can kind of corrode the Sun into nothing and kind of just kind of make a wisp of them. Almost like, it's like in Hollywood. A lot of times when, someone's something, then they're nothing. And, it just is a cycle of kind of Neptune. Whatever is the fantasy at the moment. That's kind of the problem with Neptune, is whatever the fantasy is kind of whatever one's kind of whirling into the fantasy. And sometimes the fantasy is not good, but people are still whirling into that fantasy. So it just is, one of those things that, those planets, it's kind of awful. It's it's experiencing. Dear God, I feel like Neptune's eroding my words. But experiencing it is really, it's really desensitizing, and I think just really stressful. It's very unconforming. It's very unconforming. It's a very anti kind of ego, anti-individual. Anti-individual in that sense of, when one person's not enjoying it, well, tough luck, because everyone else is, and you better, kick rocks, because there's another person that will enjoy it way more than you. And I think that, Neptune can kind of, I don't know, there's kind of different parts, but I don't want to harp on that. Anyways, speaking of Neptune, I guess that's a good segue. So I kind of wanted to talk today a little bit about magic and what I conceptualize magic as, and I'm using the Picatrix to do this today. So we're gonna do some reading. Do some reading, kids. Okay. Rogie, we're gonna do some reading, Rogue. This is my dog. She's a good girl. She's good. Okay. Can you not? You're right. Let me see if I can fix this. Damn it. Right, isn't it? Okay. You know what? I have this big. I have the what's it called? That's so lame. Are you kidding me? Well, that's fucked. That pisses me off. Now I just want to figure out why that's happening. Okay, I need to let go of it. I need to just move on. But, I mean, come on, give me a break. Like, watch. Okay, wait. So, like, look. So you can see the words right there. Why is it so blurry? I could scream. Oh my god. I want this camera. I am angry now. This camera. How, honestly, like, what world do we live in where a camera, you can't even buy a camera that fucking, that, I mean, for fuck's sake. You can't even buy a camera that will zoom in. Hulk! Transforming! That makes me angry. I don't know why this makes me so angry. Why do you have to change these settings? Oh my god. Thank you for following, King. I mean, watch. Like, what? Like, give me a break. Okay, I'm not even. I feel like there's a simple. There's probably a simple hack for this. Honestly, no. Listen, my autism brain is getting angry. I am not. Okay, wait. This is like one of those things where I'm gonna get really angry because it's gonna be really simple, and then I'm just and that's just life, and that's just how my life goes, and that's just. Oh, fuck. Anyways, okay. Well, maybe maybe this will work. Okay, you know what? I have the quotes on here, so I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out another time. I don't want to do this on stream because then it'll just be a nightmare. It'll just be a nightmare. I'm just gonna save myself. Okay, so this is kind of what I want to talk about. What's magic? What is magic? So I was gonna talk about chapter in here on chapter 2 in the Pikatrix. Book 1. It's pretty good. If you want to pick it up, my teacher Christopher Warnock and John Michael Greer. He's not my teacher, but he's pretty cool too. He does pretty good work also. They talk about this and as astrological magic. Grimoire from around the 1400s AD, medieval period. Anyways, this is actually a tradition that was incorporated for a while. Magic and astrology. It's a long tradition. This isn't something that was just like invented overnight, or like something that I came up with. And sometimes it's like really difficult to kind of like tell people like what I do. Like it's like, okay, I make talismans. I make astrological talismans. But sometimes it's like, well, what is that? What does that mean? And what do I do with that information? You know what I mean? Because like there's a big like people. I don't feel like magic is. I feel so separated from reality that I feel like when people even hear that word, they just disassociate altogether any form of like an actual cohesive communication. And that's okay. That is what it is. It's kind of we have the Copernican revolution to thank for that. That's nobody's fault. That's not. We're kind of fighting societal norms on top of just cultural norms. Just lots of things we're fighting. Anyway, so in the Pikatrix, chapter 2, book 1, it says magic. What is magic? And this is, I believe, Christopher Warnock / John Michael Greer's kind of how they kind of translated it. Specifically, this is a footnote actually that they provided. So magic can either bind the human mind and spirit by its own subtle power. So think about that. So what does that mean? It can bind the human mind and spirit by its own subtle power. Okay, so, binding. Constraining someone not to do something, making someone not do something, forcing something not to happen, making someone not do something. That's a way. Kind of binding. Forcing something to go our way. In some way. Forcing. Binding is typically more to do with what they're not going to do, rather than what they are going to do. So you're typically going to see that with binding. What you want them to not do, preventing them from doing, binding them, stopping them. Or the magician can make the appearance of something wonderful and use that appearance to catch and guide the mind. So this is kind of glamour magic. This is kind of making something seem, better than it is. It happens with marketing. I mean, it's marketing 101. And that's the thing, is like, I don't feel like people understand how rooted in our culture this already is. But it's just like people just don't recognize it as magic. And whether you recognize marketing as magic, it's magic. Just because you don't think it is doesn't mean it's not. Colors, are a form of magic. I don't know, lots of image magic are forms of magic. But yeah, so I think that's important to recognize. Seeing that for what it is. Binding someone like a law. You bind the people. That's kind of a form of magic. There's lots of things. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to just be seen. But I think what really magic is the next line. Magic is all things hidden from the senses, and things that most people do not know where they came from. So yeah, that's a lot of what really the real magic is. The real, I guess, the real roots of magic, and that's why Saturn rules the occult. If you really want to know magic well, you're gonna need to pray to Saturn. Pray to Daddy Saturn. Yeah. So, yeah, the occult is just, it's kind of interesting. I think Marcelo Ficino talks about that more, but we'll save that for later. I just really want to, keep things basic, but build on them, at the same time. Build on what we're learning. Building on what I'm kind of, or I guess, what has been provided to us. So, so we know a couple things now. A couple things of what magic does and how it kind of operates. Magic is kind of something that is beyond our senses, our ability to sense things. What are we able to sense? Well, in a lot of things, what our senses are and what technology is building off of what our senses do and what they are capable of. So, in terms of some things that we don't and we can't imagine, that we don't know how to build senses for, there are real things that we are not able to sense out. There are real things in life that we just don't know. Not to say that everything's a mystery, not to shroud everything in mystery and say that we can't know everything, because there are things that we can know. So it's important to recognize that as well. But yeah, so and magic working, can binding someone, or working on the mind, working, and I think that's really what the magic operates under is the mind, the spirit. That's how it really roots itself first, is through the mind, through the spirit. Um, Typically, your spirit is kind of linked to your ordered body, and maybe these are large words, I guess, or not, or I guess not large words, but kind of foreign words. And I think that a lot of cultures kind of use that kind of description of, like a spirit, a being, an entity, that kind of, or I guess not a spirit, or no. Let me rephrase that. A lot of what we have, a spirit, a soul, a a guardian angel, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's not as relatable. That's not as useful. But something that relates to us. I guess not a guardian angel, because that's not really. That's more like diamond, an entity being. Yeah. It's just like more so like the essence of our, the essence of who we are, like our vitality. Like when you think about how people are in hospitals or whatever, and they make miraculous recoveries, and they're like, well, they just had to live, like they just had this in them that they were gonna do it. That's kind of what I'm talking about. It's kind of like that spirit, that spirit, that will of life, I guess. Yeah, the kind of the kiss of life, I guess. Um, hey, we praise both here. We praise Saturn and Mars. We love both. I like them both. Yeah, spirit guides, yeah. But yeah, and I think that in a lot of ways, what I'm saying is things that other cultures have done. This is definitely not the only example of this, but what I'm also trying to say is that I think that on a large scale, a lot of these things are more connected than we think, and they may be not so different than we maybe realize. Like for instance, I don't know if anyone's heard of that parable where there's a bunch of people that have blindfolds on and they're feeling an elephant and they're trying to describe what they're feeling. It's a lot of that. Or a bunch of people are trying looking at something that's swishing by. It's driving really fast by them. They're seeing it. Okay, it's a car. Oh, it's a Ferrari. Oh, it's red. It's a red Ferrari. Oh, okay. We're all describing these same things. It's a and I don't think that all these things are disconnected. I think that they all are really connected, more so than we realize. Which is to say that I think that we're more right collectively than we are wrong individually. Yeah. Anyways, so magic is a lot to do with these things that we just really can't see, that we can't break down, but just work. I don't know if yeah. I think I've made my point. I like to belabor it. I like to belabor things. I like to really tease them out. So another thing which is really interesting, I think, which is extremely important to understand. So talismans are magical images, and talisman is also means violator. It's kind of a strong word, violator. Kind of wonder why would they choose violator? Violator, that seems kind of dark. It seems really bad, right? Like to me, that's kind of like, I don't like that. And I think on the surface, that may seem like that. That may be like that. Um, and again, I think it is important to remember that doing magic, operating in that sphere, it's important to be cautious. Not do, just to be cautious, not to try to do everything. Like for instance, with talismans, like I make magical talismans, I make astrological talismans, and I don't do bad talismans. I don't do evil talismans. I just don't do that. I feel like they are too powerful. Like it's too. Like once you like once you've had them, it's just like this is fucking real. Like this is what the fuck, and you'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean more so. But anyways, let's keep going. So you have violator. It's an interesting thing to think about. For using violence by conquering the substance of which it is made to work victoriously using mathematical proportions and influences with celestial writing. So essentially why they're saying that is you're conquering the spirit and the body. That's what a talisman is. It's not just a body, it is also a spirit. And it is kind of like you are writing, you are engraving, and I don't think that it is and I think that it's important to understand this. There's a very important understanding of where this energy is going. That is why I think it's important to recognize when I make a talisman, it's important that I do a good one, and that I probably don't do a bad one, because even if I'm I just don't. I would rather kind of not do, I guess, bad talismans. And maybe what I mean by bad talismans. So there's talismans that are made for good means, and there's talismans that are made for evil means. You can literally make a talisman to curse someone, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is I don't make talismans that are curses. I don't make talismans that are images of destruction. Because a talisman is an image. It is a magical image that you are projecting into your life. And if you think about how narcissism is so powerful. People can really control other people and create these images in other people's lives, these reflections through which they have to live and act, and they can only express themselves through that. That's image magic right there. That's kind of a vile. That's conquering someone else's body and spirit through image magic, and that's why I'm trying to say is these things are more interconnected than we realize, and that's what I don't think that people realize is image magic is so prevalent in our society, with marketing, with so many things. And I think it's important to expand your mind and understand this isn't just, like, oh, it's only concerning with people that make astrological talismans, No, it's so much more than that. And I just think that, in society, like in America, there's kind of like this cultural narcissism of projecting this image of winners into your life and losers into others. And, I think that that's very dangerous if you don't understand that and you get involved, with situations where you kind of, where you kind of become that image, that, the kind of the cultural narcissistic image, I guess. And I think that that's part of the zeitgeist right now. I think that people, there's this kind of narcissistic bent that people are kind of leaning towards. And, I think that people are doing it because a lot of times, and that's what is culturally comes up consistently, is people think that they had to do these things in order to survive. They had to act these ways in order to survive. They justify and rationalize these means, thinking that it's important that they do these things because they had to survive. There was no other option. And I just don't think that's true. I think that there's always an option to figure things out, and what your reaction is actually the only control you have in life, if you really think about it. you can't control what happens to you, but you can control what you and how you react. So taking that image back and not letting other people tell you and giving your, letting other people reflect their image into your life. Sorry. When I get really excited, I'm sometimes I just like my verbal kind of like my brain does not let my mouth move very smoothly. But regardless, I need to also work on slowing down and just like saying things. But it just I've been saying that for like 15 years. So at some point, you just kind of get used to what your brain does and allows you to do, and you just kind of just make peace with it, and you just say, yeah, I'm autistic, and that's that. And I think that's, I don't know, my own. Yeah, I guess I kind of want to just leave that there for that, and like just kind of let that be there. Um, I guess with like the narcissism, kind of just like I'm writing a paper on that, so things will be a little bit more fleshed out. Expect that. It's gonna take a little bit, but one thing at a time. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, just let me know, because I always like to peel back the layers and explain things one by one. Let people understand how I got to where I've, my conclusions. Ultimately just to help and just to really be transparent and, not to act like I'm some, great person, because, honestly, all I've done is really just, use what other people have done before me. That's really it. I'm, benefiting because other people have worked hard, and, because I'm working hard in tandem. But anyways, so to keep going, like the violation thing is kind of important. I think it's important to understand that. I don't. So I study astrology. I've been doing astrology for almost 6 years, actually. Yeah, 6 years. My teachers are Austin Kopic, Christopher Warnock. He's actually the guy that wrote this book. Well, he didn't write it; he just helped translate it. But Astrological Magic, astrology. But I don't study like modern astrology, where it's like, I kind of I understand modern astrology. That's kind of what I started with. But what really draws me in is the more historically accurate astrology, the astrology that is accurate as they did it in the Hellenistic and Greek era. I really like, and through the medieval and Renaissance period as well. I really like those forms of astrology just because it was so linear. And then during the Copernican Revolution, astrology was kicked out of the universities, and so in India they still have it, but in America they, in the Western world really they don't. But it is what it is. It's I don't know. It's kind of one of those things that is it's an occult topic for a reason, because it's kind of like this really like this system of understanding the world, which is likened almost to the alphabet, in a way, because it's a system that you can, it's a symbolic system that you use. It's not, it's kind of, it's what people have used for a while, and it's like any system. If you use any system, you can, really get good at it, understand it, and innovate, get better, and really just, okay. Well, no, okay, man, I hear you. I was, honestly, that's where I was. I was in the same boat. I started learning astrology back in 2016. And I remember then, where I started was YouTube. I really liked YouTube. That was where I really liked. Then I went towards. Then I found some podcasts. Excuse me. If you go to, so I also really like this podcast called the Astrology Podcast, and there's this guy named Chris Brennan, and he has like over 375 podcasts all about astrology. and you can listen to them. He does a traditional astrology like I do, and he's really good. He has Austin Kopic on there as well as my teacher Christopher Warnock. So if you're interested, go find them on there. And also, there's just a bunch of people that he brings on that you can kind of look at, and he brings a lot of really good astrologers on. One day it would be I would love to be on that podcast one day. That's like a dream. I think for every astrologer, it's like the podcast to be on. I'm still but he's great. Yeah. So if you want like a really good free place to learn astrology where you can how you have a backlog of a bunch of content, go there. I also like to help people learn astrology, formalize it and stuff, understand it. I'm really good at being very critical at understanding things, and so that's one thing I really try to help with people is understanding the critical layers that are necessary to kind of stack so that you can build a really good sandwich. Oh, okay. Oh, you do. You're like, nah, I know that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. No, that's good. That's good. You're in the right spot then. I like that. Yeah, no, that's good. I also like Vic Takara. He uses the tropical zodiac, but he uses Jyotish astrology or it's fallen again. But yeah. Okay, so let's get back into talking about talismans. So one thing I do want to talk about, if you want a really good book, Demetra George, Ancient Astrology. She has 2 books, Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Ancient Astrology. Those are really good. She released one of the second volume this year. It talks about the houses. The first one talks about planetary. I love those books. Those are really, really, really good books. And I like them because I feel like a lot of what traditional astrology is it's very, very basic. But if you forget to use it, and if you forget to be consistent with how you do it, you're going to run into a lot of errors. That's the thing, is it's really easy to understand, but if you don't layer it right, and if you don't, if you're not consistent with how you, and I think that she does a really good job of laying that out and helping people kind of iron out those details and say, okay, this is how you be consistent. This is what you go off of. This is what, this is kind of the rules of, operation, I guess. That's what I like. Because, when you're doing it, you need to keep it simple. That's just the most important thing, I think, is just keep it simple. And keep going, I guess, but yeah. Yeah, of course. Oh, shit. Well, my keyboard's in the other room because I had to, I was writing some astrology articles, but, here, let me do something. Oh yeah, no, I quit. Never mind. I have Twitch on my. Okay, let me message it right now. Demetra George, Ancient Astrology. Okay, I think that's it. So let me just make sure. Also, I don't know if you knew this, but there's this really cool series called Changing of the Gods that was that aired, I think, for the first time in February. But now it's available on Amazon, at the App Store, Google Play, and Vimeo. So yeah, I'll send that too. Yeah, it's pretty good, and it's pretty good stuff. Richard Tarnas is in there. I really like Richard Tarnas. He's a really good book, Cosmos and Psyche. Cosmos and Psyche is the end all be all. I feel like every astrologer should read that book. It's just as it sets up astrology and the history of the world as astrology is concerned in a very good way. Not the end all be all, but you know what I mean. It's just a very, very good book. Let me make sure that's it though. Demetra George. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, Demetra George, Ancient Astrology. And she's a very, very, very good teacher. She actually taught Chris Brennan and Austin Kopic. She's just really fabulous. Very she's yeah, she just is. No one does it like her. I don't know. It's yeah, there's a lot of astrologers, older astrologers that um they kind of set the bar, they set the standard. And I don't know. I really look up to her. She's really talented. She took her gifts and she ran with them. You know. So yeah, talismans are magical images, also meaning violator. I think that's interesting to think about. Because when you're doing a magical operation, in a way, you're kind of, you're doing something. You're telling the universe. You're doing a ritual where you're saying you're kind of, I guess, violating the laws of the universe. I don't know if that's kind of maybe a good way to look at it, but I guess that the symbolism of that is that. However, it doesn't look like that. I mean, obviously, it's magic, so it's not going to look like it's actually happening as it is. Otherwise, it wouldn't be like so mysterious. Yeah, let's keep going. Okay, so talismans conquer bodies by transmutations and changes by transmutations and changes to a more pure body. Images violently crafted into our lives. So yeah, I think that's actually that kind of sums it up really good. That's where I was going. So in a way, what talismans do, like the power of talismans, is they're kind of, and that's why it's important to remember to get a good one to make sure you're involving yourself with a good talisman that you want to be a part of. I do have Mars and Saturn talismans. I think that those two can be very well done constructively. I actually love my Mars talisman. My Mars talisman is like one of my favorites to wear. Like it's I don't know, it's just fun wearing that talisman. But that's what it kind of does. Is it's kind of like conquering. You're conquering the talisman, the spirit, and the body in order to conquer, what you're doing to yourself. That's why I like to do the good things, because it's, because you're wanting to do it to yourself, like, and do unto others as others would do unto you. It kind of ties back to that Mercury thing that I was talking at the beginning. And magic is part of Mercury. It's ruled in part by Mercury. And I think it's important to recognize that, magic is better elevated when we are trying to help and remediate ourselves and other people. So when we are doing these operations and when we are trying to conquer maybe the more deleterious and awful parts of life, to kind of, quell them and to, control them into, being more fortuitous events and possibilities, I think that's what we're trying to do. That is what we are after. So, in a way, we are violating, the kind of the ends of our defeat, or the ends of our disintegration. I think that's what you're doing. That's what magic is you're trying to build something, trying to construct something that will ultimately be for the betterment of you and other people. And I think that that's what talismans are best used as. Good for you, good for other people, and not to use them as though to control other people, to bind, yeah. I think that to not gossip and tote yourself around as if you're better than other people and say, look at them, wow, look at them. We don't want to be like wolves with swords in our mouths, just like spewing like negative energies, you know what I mean, like at people. Just because we have these powers doesn't mean that we need to act like we are tyrants. I don't think that people do that, but I think I just like to say it because I think it's necessary to recognize that power is great, but wouldn't it be greater if we had power and we were humble and we just wanted people to get along and to just, thrive together and to just, build a better life with other people instead of trying to make other people be happy how we are happy? I don't think that that's very fun. I don't want other people to be happy how I'm happy. I want other people to be happy how they're happy. Then they'll make things and do things that'll be beneficial for themselves and me. So I think that it's just one of those things just to think about. It's like Yeah, and I think that that's why that's why I believe in that's why I think talismans are pretty good. I think that when you endow them, when you create them for good means, you can create some really crazy things, crazy awesome things. You know, so yeah, to finish things off, I'll kind of keep going. Talismans work like elixirs by quickly converting a body from one nature into another, more noble one. Elixirs can be translated to mean fortitude, because it shatters other fortitudes by conquering them, and it transmutes a property by reducing it down into another until it is transmuted and made whole. So that's the power of talismans. Is it's kind of like when you're there's that's why they also talk about this like ring burn when you first get one. Is it's kind of like, oh, this is kind of jumps around. For instance, Deneb Getty. Whenever Deneb Getty has kind of settled into a new car or a car that we've introduced, it just is kind of something happens. Something happens that makes it feel unsafe, and then all of a sudden everything's safe. It's kind of like Deneb Getty is like, hey, here's a boundary that needs to be resecured, and then you resecure that boundary, and you know about that, so that you can do better and be better. That's part of it. It's transmuting. It's taking that bad quality and taking it out so that there can be a good quality there. That's part of it, and that's really why it's like so crazy that we can do these things. I don't know. It's just like when you experience it, you're like, holy fucking shit! I am like one day I'll wear my Mars talisman, and the next day I'll wear my Venus talisman. And I'll be like, yeah, I am completely different today. Like, yeah, no, I'm not. Like, my mode of action is different. Like, I'm just more. I don't know. It's crazy. It just is. It's just. It's pretty powerful. But I think that I need to talk about that more, because I don't feel like people get that. It's something that I feel like I'm kind of talking. I need to be able to explain it a little bit better, just because I can understand it and deal with it. And on my level doesn't mean and that's the problem. I think that it's sometimes with astrologers. Me myself included, is I'll kind of get this is what I'm actively working to try and not do as much, but I don't want to use like mumbo jumbo words that don't make things clear. It's helpful to make things clear, but yeah, peeling it back layer by layer I think helps, but yeah, I think just going slow and steady is just the best. But yeah. Yeah, Chris Brennan, and okay, I'll be honest, Chris Brennan doesn't like magic. He doesn't like astrological magic. I'm pretty sure he thinks that it's actually kind of ruining the reputation of astrology, to be honest. And that's okay. There are definitely some astrologers that think that, which is fine. It's completely fine. Honestly, I was kind of upset by it at first, but then I was like, I don't really care. It's kind of like, for a good example, it's kind of like how, and there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It sucks that he doesn't like it, but I think it's important to yeah. I don't know. I'm just kind of he can have he can do what he does. He's really good at what he does. Yeah, I don't want to make things homogenized. I don't want to act like he just needs to see things my way, when in reality, him doing what he does is actually really beneficial, and maybe me thinking that everyone, yeah, that's just kind of like what I want to avoid. But it's academia for a long time. Astrology, especially like in the 80s, 90s. I guess the 70s, 80s, 90s. I may be not as accurate on those time periods, but there was this real part of astrology that wanted to be a part of academia and wanted to be considered just as much of a science as psychology. And it is. Just because people don't recognize it doesn't mean it's not. But I think there's a real amount of people in astrology or want to be recognized. They want to be supported by academic associations, and that's fine. Good for them. I think personally, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I just don't really see science accepting astrology. I mean, the Copernican revolution kind of tore things to bits. Um, but, it's kind of like what I was saying a little bit at the beginning with how when you get Neptune involved, you kind of get this like deleterious ego, that's kind of difficult to control, where it thinks that anyone that thinks outside of their perspective is just completely wrong. And I think that that's, or just like completely weirdo, they're crazy, they're conspiracy theorists. And I get that, but I just think it's a little bit, yeah, it is what it is. It's life. I think that that's always going to be there, and I think that some people they want things to be perfect, and that's okay. I'd like things to be perfect too. I can't blame them for wanting those things, but ultimately, um, I'm not. Um, I'm not holding my breath, I guess, for the day that magic and astrology will be accepted by, by everyone. I just don't think that's going to happen. Just also because, in part, they are part ruled by Saturn. Um, and Saturn rules the occult, and certain knowledge needs to be kept secret because, in certain hands, I think that I guess I don't think it necessarily in certain hands, but I think that not everything has to be, you know, uh, societal approved or Christian approved. I guess if you're living in the United States, you know what I mean. Like I just think that it's just one of those things where it's like it's okay that it's not approved by everyone, and I actually kind of think that I'm okay with that. I actually kind of think that that's more beneficial maybe to it. But who knows? Who knows? I invite everyone's opinion. It's perspective that I have doesn't mean I'm right. Um, yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's just one thing I think that is kind of difficult. Is it's as much as like people, it's a it's a it's kind of a I guess a Uranian thing to want. It's a ideals pushing towards ideals. I guess or maybe not just Uranian, but um, yeah. But yeah. Anyways, so I think that that's a little bit about magic and kind of the foreground of how magic works. Um, yeah, I agree. Yeah, it is. No, it totally is. The status of astrology is totally party trick at the moment. I totally agree with you. And honestly, like, I'm autistic, and so very few times will I be able to say something smart in the moment because I'll be thinking about it too much, and I'll be observing myself in a way that is, maybe, I don't know. It's just one of those things where uh, I ultimately I kind of get too desensitized. That's why I actually love Twitch, is because I'm able to kind of look at the comments and like it's not overly sensitive for me where I'm like I don't know how to deal with this, because sometimes like in person it'll just be so much going on that I'll be like I won't be able to make heads or tails really. But yeah, so I won't be like that good, But like when I'm alone, then I'll be thinking to myself, well, I could have said this, this, and this, But that that's not impressive at the moment, that's what you're saying, that's what the status of astrology is totally. Yeah, I agree, and I think he is. I think that's really good, and I think that I would love it for it to be out of that because like for instance, I was in a bookstore the other day. I was in Los Angeles. We were in a bookstore, and there was this person. We overheard this person saying, "Isn't this interesting? They said that this is a rising sign. This is every rising sign has this, and for me, it wasn't true." And it's like, well, like probably, it's a yeah. There's whenever you get like a cookbook astrology, form. It's someone that's writing it. It's someone's perspective, and they're just trying to make it as general as possible to catch enough. They're trying to make their net as wide as possible to really catch as many people. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. That is okay. That is one form of astrology. But I just think that people kind of get so in their own heads with it, and they kind of just like think that it has to be right verbatim or else it means nothing. And in reality, astrology is, is kind of an interpretation of a language, of the language of the stars. It's a so I think, yeah, Chris Brennan says that. I really like Chris Brennan. As much as he may not like magic, I totally, I think he's really good, and I'm really happy that he's I'm really happy for everything that he's done. And I think that that's like part of astrology is understanding that, I mean, in any field really, because if you look back at some of the relationships that other people had, other astrologers had in past eras, like for instance with William Lilly, and his relationship with his teacher, it was very tumultuous. And so, there's lots of instances where, astrologers kind of get, a little bit locked in their own ego and kind of, can't really acknowledge someone else's form of astrology because it doesn't feed their ego in some way. But, I just think I just think it's important to recognize and support other astrologers, even albeit, if they don't share my same opinion, even especially the modern astrologers, honestly, because it's like, even like, I don't know, it's just, but yeah, it's, we're getting somewhere. Oh yeah, I totally agree. There is a lot to learn, and I'm still learning. And I just want to say this: by using and working with talismans, like my knowledge has just just not exploded, but just it's kind of like exponentially increased. It's just excuse me, it's incredible how talismans can be so powerful and so helpful, and like I just think that it's one thing that I hope other people can use in their lives. I think that it's actually a really good I don't know, I just think that it's something that I think would benefit people in such a broad and lasting way that I'm confused why more people don't do it. And in the future, I Spirit Sundry, I mean, is booming, but yeah, and hopefully, I have my own. I make my own talismans. I'm actually gonna release Jupiter in Pisces one that I did. It's called the Power of God. That's kind of why I'm doing this, is because it's like I want to talk about the power of talismans and how they've impacted my life. The power of God. Because talismans, that's like the power of God. If you think about, you look at the Bible, you look at the golden calf when Moses went to Mount Sinai to get the Ten Commandments and left the people of the people that left Egypt, in the wilderness, and while he was gone, communing with God on Mount Sinai, they built a golden calf. And that golden calf, well, that's a talisman. That is a talisman. Marsilio Ficino talks about how that was a talisman to to support Judaism, to support the Jewish people. And how that was to protect them. And it's really interesting, I think, how that, how, graven images is kind of forbidden in Christianity. And I think a lot of that has to do with how Christianity didn't like astrological talismans or astrology in general, because part of Christianity was that your birth chart didn't matter because you were reborn. But in reality, we all have these birth charts, and we all can't escape our birth chart. It's like a lot of people try to be born again and try to get rid of their birth chart, but you can't do that. And I think a lot of what Christianity, the basis of it is kind of you escape that fate. You escape your fate so that you can have a new one. And they, divulged into a lot of other things. But, it's interesting how, at first, I don't know, it's just interesting. It's just, how people, how religion, in some way tried to get people to not use something that was very helpful to them. It's interesting. It's like, why wouldn't that be good for people to use? Wouldn't that be good? I just think that, it's one of those things that as much as there's information, there's misinformation to direct people to go somewhere else. And that's really, I think, why Saturn rules the occult, is because, there's people are easily able to provide misinformation, because if magic is all things hidden from the senses, how easy is it to dispel any? You know what I mean? It's just you get kind of lost, and you get kind of lost with perspectives easily in that. So how did I learn to make talismans? That's a good point. That's a good question. So I learned to make talismans from Christopher Warnock, Austin Kopic, Ryan. Actually, you know who you should go to? So if you really want some help with astrological magic, you should go to Medieval Astrology Guide. I'll put it in the chat. Basically, it's this astrologer. I'm actually in the Patreon group. But it's this astrologer named Ryan Butler. He's very great. He does astrological talismans. He makes them. I've used his candles, his talismanic candles. They work fabulously. They are very good. I would definitely recommend them. But let me put his site. Maybe he's really good, and he has he is kind of like more, I guess, helpful if you're wanting to learn talismans. He has a kind of a group that's really set up to help people. Yeah, Austin Kopic. Yep. Yeah, that's my other teacher. That's my other teacher. Yeah. I'm actually about to graduate from his. Well, not about. It's gonna be over in December, so not for a little bit. But I'm in his year 3 class, and I'm about to be over with that. And he does teach astrology. He teaches talismans and stuff. Yeah, he's pretty cool. I like him. Thank you. Yeah. Here, let me put that link in the chat. But yeah, if you go there, Ryan, he's really cool. He's really helpful. He's really supportive. He has a really good group of people in his Discord if you join the Patreon. He's really helpful. He also gives elections for everyone for free to make talismans, because part of a talisman is you have to have a configuration in the sky. The configuration is kind of like an aspect between two planets. And, that's kind of like, configuration is like an image in a way. That's really the basis of astrological talismans. You're building an image about what's happening in the sky so that it can permanently happen and be endowed into your life for forever. That's the goal. And so you're wanting to have a really auspicious, really good moment in astrology to be able to do that. That's kind of the basis for it. But yeah, I guess you can also go to my website too. I mean, I got some stuff too, but I got a lot of stuff, okay? And I have talismans also. My talismans are pretty damn cool. I'm just saying, I don't know why I'm advertising other people and not myself. Goddamn Aquarius. This is the Aquarius in me. This is the Aquarius in me, okay? I can't control it. Oh. It's just the truth. Anyways. But yeah, here's my website. I don't know. Let me know. Okay, well, I think I'm going to call it for today. Yeah, I hope this helped. I really love talking about astrology. I love talking about magic. And I really just want to make it more clear what it is that, it does. And, yeah. Yes, you got it. You got it. And it's fun. It's like doing the ritual is, I mean, the first couple times are obviously stressful because you're like, oh gosh, what am I doing? Imposter syndrome. Well, I guess that happened for me. But once you you do it enough, and I've been making talismans for 3 years. Yeah, I've been making talismans. My first talisman was 3 years ago. Yeah, fuck. When Jupiter was in Sag. And now I'm about to launch my Jupiter and Pisces series. The Power of God. That's I'm really excited for that one. That one was really, really good. That one was the best one. But yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna go now. But I hope you have a good day, Cayman. Yeah, Cayman. Yeah, Cayman. Hope you have a good day, Cayman. And I wish you as much success on your journeys as possible. I love that. Oh my God, you have Mars in Aries. I love that. Mars is so amazing in Aries. I love Mars in Aries. Aquarius Sun, we stand Aquarius Sun. Also Virgo Rising, pretty cool. I have a friend that's Virgo Rising. He's pretty cool. Anyways, I'll catch you later. Have a good day, Cayman, and good luck on your studies, everyone.